MADMEN podcast series, a new series of podcasts where we hope to uncover a bit of joy and a bit of fun in some interesting times. My name's Jonathan Fogarty, a privilege to be with you again today, and joining me, as always, my fellow madman, the incomparable Mr. Simon Reeves. Simon, how are you, sir?
Jono, very good. Thanks, mate. As we struggle to get 160 views on our Zoomcast podcast, we're talking to a guy who's got about 160 million. So we're going to be taking notes today.
Absolutely. Well, as an introduction, our guest today, fascinating gent, a writer, director, producer, multi-Emmy award-winning creator and co-founder of Ludo Studios, sometime roommate to Thor and the Grandmaster from the Marvel Universe. Welcome, Mr. Daley Pearson. Hello, Daley.
Oh, hello. Thank you very much for having me. I'm really chuffed to be here. How are you guys?
Never.
Great, and all the better for having you on screen with us, Daley. Thanks so much for doing it.
Oh, I'm more than happy. Thanks for having me. How are you guys going? What's happening this week?
Well,
I guess we're digital content creators. That's what we like to think of ourselves. So, as I say, our notebooks are ready, mate, today.
Well, we were secretly saying in our 30 seconds meeting before the call. I've not met you guys, and we've just met 30 seconds ago. So this will be a real pleasure. We were just saying how much this is the new. I don't know. I don't feel like you're real unless you do chats like this. I feel like that Good Morning America sit down interviews or magazine articles. I feel like it'll still exist, but I feel like it might be past the days where that's where you. I think people just won't think you're real if that's all you do. I feel like you do need to sit. You sit in your lounge and you talk about it, and you have the Matrix on in the background. Like, I feel like people need to see what's on your bookshelf now.
Yeah, it's so true. And the whole process, I mean, I've worked in...
And then you'll be cancelled for it. They'll cancel you for it. That's it. You've got that book. You've got Harry Potter.
I've worked in free-to-air television for a long time. And that whole process of arriving at the studio, getting made up, getting prepared, you end up with this sort of curated version of yourself or the guest as well. And there are certain rules that you have to play by, and they're unwritten, but they're there, and you know that they're there. You're absolutely right. Doing this it's
a funny thing.
Stripping back everything.
Yeah, it really is, and I understand. I feel a bit bad talking towards people that do. That's their business to be affluential and look good and be inspiring. Like, I don't have anything against that. Like, nothing against that at all. But I feel like that's a particular. I feel like it'll be like, we used to sit around the record player and listen. I was like, well, now we just listen in the earphones. That I just think this is, for me, I much prefer this. Like, I like to see the, and I think that people think things are more achievable with this sort of thing. Like, there's something about, I don't know, there's something about a president being interviewed and seeming presidential, which makes things seem not possible.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, oh, he doesn't go to the bathroom.
Yep.
Like or whatever, singer, songwriter, or somebody who's done something outstanding in their life. Because you see them presented that way, you almost feel like, well, I don't look like that. Yeah. Or they don't sit. They never wear bare feet. Yeah. There's something really inspiring about seeing these amazing people be normal.
Yeah, it's role play, isn't it? I mean, that's what we're talking about.
It really is. I haven't done much of that stuff, but like I've done like the breakfast interviews and stuff like that, and the people are really nice and great, but it's the most unnatural environment. It's the job they do to appear normal is incredible. Yeah. It's a real effort.
Yeah. I'd love to start, Daley. Tell us a little bit. Don't assume our listeners are very many, nor know a lot about Ludo Studios and the organisation you got there, and they're the little engine that could in so many ways. Tell us a little bit about the team and give us a sense of what happens there.
I have no problem with that. I assume nobody knows us at all or cares even. I would go further. Nobody cares.
We care.
We're I guess we make film and TV. Like, that's sort of it in a sentence. We make stories. I've sometimes written that on a document, stuff like that, and I thought, who do you think you are? Like we make
what sort of
stories.
wanker are you, mate?
Yeah, it is. But I feel like it's hard to say film and TV now, because I think, like you guys, I feel like we would make something. We would make anything that we like. Like we never thought we'd be in animation, but we are. We always wanted to do features, and we're only just starting that. So I feel like we would do we would be attracted to anything that is entertaining, I guess. That is entertaining and tells a good story. So yeah, sorry, that does sound wacky, but so we make stuff. We're in Brisbane. We started about, I don't know, 7 years ago, and because being in Brisbane, it's a little bit. I always think, would Charlie and I be doing Ludo if we were in Sydney or London or stuff like that? Because I'm naturally a pretty lazy person, and it's like, well, because there was nothing else in Brisbane, you sort of have to do it. You have to be in charge of your own fate, especially, I should say, for film and TV. And it's changed, by the way, in 7 years, dramatically. It's this country town, but it's not as 1980s as I'm making it. It's just that for film and TV, there wasn't a booming industry here. And there still really isn't. We're definitely finding it, and there's definitely brilliant people, but we knew that we would have to be in charge of our own destiny a bit. But we came from writing and directing TV and film, and I had created and written and directed a show called The Strange Calls with Barry Crocker for ABC, and I was just helped by incredible people. I managed to strike up a really good relationship. This was before Ludo, with a lady called Debbie Lee at ABC, and she has been responsible for every good Australian show you would have liked. She's just I don't know, she's just a good finder of cool things, and she really looked out for me, and I was able to do this first show, a 6x30-hour show, and it was set in Coolum, where I grew up, Coolum Beach in Queensland, and then it had a little bit of success. It had a US remake, and I suddenly realized that you could do what I grew up wanting to do from Brisbane. It was just weird to hear that people like Marv from Home Alone were in this show that we had made in Coolum, and then it was remade at NBC, and it was just very strange. It was like the world had opened up. It wasn't easy. Things weren't easier by any means, but it was just things became. There seemed to be more opportunities because of it. And then around that time, Charlie and I met on Strange Calls. He was post-producer, and he's co-founder and director at Ludo with me. And then we also had hanging around a really cool guy called Nick Bosher, and he and a guy called Dave Jansen started off the Sydney end, but over time it's just drifted to be just based in Brisbane. And Charlie and I really just got on brilliantly and just kept making stuff and kept wanting to not move to LA. Like, there is that opportunity to go there and set up shop there, but for some reason I definitely didn't want to. I love collaborating with people, but I just never had that pull to move there and make it there. We just wanted to create an industry here, and then that's led to we've made a few shows here. We just picked up our third Emmy, which is ridiculous, and probably the biggest show, the one that's on sort of happening at the moment, is Bluey, which is just blowing up, certainly beyond our wildest dreams. We made four shows last year, and they're all slowly building, and they're brilliant shows. But Bluey just supernovaed a bit in the past bit. We always thought that everyone worked hard enough to earn it, but we never thought we deserved anything that's happening with Bluey. It's all made here. So I'm sitting at Ludo. There's about 50 to 60 animators. It's all made under one roof. Joe Brum is the creator, and he's brilliant. Charlie and I produce it together, and it's just a bit of a dream project because it's with the composer who I've worked with since we were 18. It's Joe's brother is the sound designer. The people in production and studio are all people we made short films with, and now we're making something bigger. So it's a real, it's a bit of a dream project, but I know you seem like contractually have to say this, but it's all the team. It's like a really good team. They really yeah, like it was half the studio's first job out of uni, the first season, and it's just, yeah, it was incredible. It was incredible that they've reached up such amazing talent in such a short time as well.
It speaks volumes for the Griffith Film School as well. There's a lot of alumni under that Ludo roof.
Yeah. So there's a lot. Like, I went to Griffith Film School. I am a dropout. I dropped out before about 6 months before finishing. Not through anything. I just had there was a feature film that we wanted to make with Josh Lawson, who's a really brilliant Australian actor and comedian, and we just went off and made it. I felt like I'd learned everything I needed. I hadn't, by the way, but I felt like I had. But yeah, you're totally right. That's we since then they've been really brilliant in collaborating on training as well, getting animators to a place where they're ready to work on a show.
It's interesting, Simon. I'm a proud Griffith alumnus as well. I got
Oh,
a
really?
Bachelor of Arts from the Nathan campus, and I tell this great story that when I graduated, you get your Griffith certificate and you have to go and get it framed yourself. Yeah. And I had it in my car.
That's really good.
This is a true story too. My car was broken into and they took my briefcase, and
they've got your identity now.
I've gone to the police station. This is a true story. And they said, well, what did they steal? And I was, briefcase. And the policeman said, well, what was in the briefcase? And I said, my degree from Griffith University. He said, what was the degree in? And I said, oh, it was a Bachelor of Arts. And he didn't even blink. He just looked at me deadpan and said, well, they won't get far with that. True story.
Yeah, they're out there somewhere.
Which always offended me a little bit. So.
And look at you now, Jono.
Yeah.
High flyer.
Yeah. That's right.
They won't get far with that.
So having all that creative sort of juice under one roof, how has it been in the last couple of months with COVID-19, and has it changed the way you work with people working from home? And because oftentimes the magic happens under the roof when people sort of pass through the door. How has it been different? It's definitely, we've had to change up a lot. We had about 70 last year here when we were doing a few productions, but it was just about 50 to 60 as COVID started happening. And the best thing, the whole reason, I think I tried to say it in my long, terrible monologue before, but the whole reason is making stuff in Brisbane is that stuff's just better when you're near the people. Well, not always, but it's just easier when you're next to the people you're working with. Like, I think, and that was a big strength of the shows we've made here, and certainly Bluey, is that the director's next to the animation director, the composer's just over the road, the animator, and everyone hangs out together, and it was a real strength. And then I think, like everybody, we were just sort of made jokes about it at first, and then it got very serious very quickly. We were really fortunate. I think about 3 weeks before the government announced the proper lockdown, that's when we started working from home, and at the start we kept a really small. I'll show you the studio so you can see it. We kept a really small skeletal crew here, but we're still only. I'll fill in what happened, but we're still. So this is the studio. This is the Bluey team, but there's only it's less lonely
than
people in there.
Yeah, especially Daniel. There's less than half working. Like, we have 20. That's what sort of right now we're going by the rules of how much you can have when you go out and stuff. So we've had up to 20 for the past couple of weeks, but it was I hadn't seen Charlie, who we run the company together, for last week. I'd seen him on Zoom and stuff, but we hadn't been together for about 2.5 months. It was pretty crazy. And if we didn't have the team we had, I think it would have gone pretty bad. We haven't missed a deadline. Everyone's kept their jobs, and it's been, but there's been a lot of, the shock of it was absorbed by every layer, from like the producers to production to animation to, like, everyone had to make pretty crazy adjustments. And just working from home just brought up, just not even the, like, it's not just the I think everyone would have experienced. It's not just like the actual work you have to do from home. It's just a different environment. Like one of the animators just had a crazy housemate who just went crazy, and so like I laughed as well.
Yeah,
and it was like violence, and it was just crazy.
No.
So
no, I'm not laughing.
No, I was the same. I was like, you're, and he was like 21. I was like, you can deal with it. And it was like, no, it's going really crazy. And so he moved in for like 2 weeks, and then other people have had to swap that similar situation. So it was like, it was all this stuff around the show, like the gray areas that were the weird bits. And I wouldn't have known half of them. Like, these are the ones that I just know about. Like, everyone would have had their own personal battles that they never told anyone about, or never told work about, I guess. So I have to assume there was just stuff I've never heard about that people overcame.
Gosh,
as well
I
as
feel a TV show coming on out of this.
A little bit, yeah. It was a bit crazy, but everyone really, like, one thing we have at the studios, we have Friday screenings. We have one today where we all get together and watch it, and it's grown. At first it was just to review animation and see everyone's work during the week, and now it's grown that we've had like politicians drop by, all friends and family. It's growing a bit, but we had to stop them, but we've kept the Zooms up. So every Friday we got together and we have about an hour and a half with everyone on Zoom, and we've had like trivia nights and stuff like that. But nothing really replaces hanging out with people as much as you try to. But yeah, so we're hit, but we have to say we were really lucky. Like, animation is not friendly to this environment, but you can keep going. And all our live action shows we were writing them. So compared to other people who have really been hit in the head by it, we've been really, really lucky. Yeah, really lucky.
And any irony that you can now kind of appreciate Bandit's challenge in life.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that is right. Yeah, and it's funny. People were saying, "Oh, you should do some Corona reps," and we were like, "They're all Corona reps. They're all trapped at home with your family. Like, they already are."
I probably should take a step back, because we shouldn't assume, but we do want to talk about the little blue dog that's taken on
totally.
the world. I mean, the world seems a bit grim at the moment, but you guys have managed to create, I call it 7 minutes of sunshine for families all around the world each week. With
we should put that on the poster. That's very nice to hear.
You can have that. That is absolutely yours. Tell us about. Assume we're a couple of middle-aged, ill-educated dads.
You already have. Yeah.
Thanks, Daley. Was it that obvious?
Well, yeah. It was
tried to hide it.
Heavily filtered. Introduce us, Daley, to Bluey, and give us a little bit of the story about who she is.
Totally. I'd be happy to. So, Joe Brum is the creator of Bluey, and it really, the germ of it came from his life. He's the dad of 2 girls, around 4 and 6, around Bluey and Bingo's age. And before talking about the characters or the show, the real seed at the heart of it, which we chatted about with Joe, I don't know, it was almost 5 years ago now. I have no concept of time anymore. I think it was like 4 or 5 years ago. Was play, and I like to consider myself really cutting edge, and I like to think that I have a good creative brain, but I didn't even realize how amazing this seed of an idea Joe had, and how big the tree would grow from it, if that makes sense. And it was all about children playing, and he was really passionate about that. And there's an element of child psychology to it, but not really. It was just really about play, and I think a bit of that had come from schooling that he had experienced, and types of teachers and types of learning, and how children just live in the world. And the version of play that the whole show is based around is that this play is a child's first draft of everything. Like, it's like them when they play whatever the game is they're playing. It's they realize that there's not lava around, or there's not, but the emotions and everything coming with it it may as well be having a discussion about work at your office, you know, if you're an adult. Like, it's the same level of reality for them. And it's the same level of emotions that come out. So this first draft of play was learning about, learning about everything from being funny to sharing to all that sort of real ABC core emotions, to the more difficult stuff like compromise and jealousy and, you know, death. There's an episode that does let Bluey deal with death, and it was just incredible how big that tree has grown from the seed of I want to make a show about children and how they play and how parents play with kids. And from the very start, it was also about co-viewing, that the show was very much meant for parents and kids. It was commissioned as a preschool show, but it was always a Trojan horse show. It was always a preschool show that secretly was for families. And that was a bit tough to begin with, because when we first took it out there, we had a 1-minute pilot, and everyone, there was just a few not bad things in it, but Dad being on his mobile while Bluey got in danger, you know, on a swing. She was just swinging, and so it was just a bit crazy. And it took a while to talk to people about, is this Simpsons, Family Guy, or is this Peppa Pig? And then we thought we had a really good answer, that we said it's both, but that wasn't a good answer until you make it, because people are like, well, you can't, it's one or the other. And then we had about a year of shopping it around overseas, this 1-minute pilot, where it was a brilliant pilot. It just was Dad and Bluey, and it was just Dad pushing Bluey on a swing. He gets distracted and Bluey goes the whole way around on a swing. So stuff that wouldn't happen in Bluey, because that's sort of against Bluey's very real.
TV
it's
laws
very,
or whatever,
yeah, and it's also Bluey's very real. There's nothing in there that's there other than them being dogs. There's nothing in there that isn't Seinfeld, or it's very real characters, very real people, except they're dogs. And we took that around, and we didn't have too much success. People loved it. And then we met this guy called Michael Carrington, and he is now almost running ABC, but at the time he was running kids, and he really believed in it. And together with Michael, helped us with ABC. We made a 5-6 minute pilot of the episode that is now The Weekend. I think it was redone. It was The Weekend, and then it was, we knew then, okay, it's going to be a preschool show. It's not going to break any sort of standards and practices issues. It's going to be a very appealing show. We knew what we were aiming at, and we knew if there was going to be family and adult stuff, or the stuff that families or mum and dad seem to love about Bluey.
Okay, take a big breath in for me, Bingo. Ooh, that was a big one.
Can you ask her if I can go home?
It would have to be done in a roundabout way, I guess. And from there, it just really has been a bit of a dream ride into production. As soon as people saw it, it happened quite quickly that BBC Studios came on board, and then Screen Australia, Screen Queensland, and now we're just finishing the second season.
This content creation, it's such a great story, can be very subjective, and I guess kids stuff. I suppose to some extent, Daley, everyone like you and Charlie and Joe, everyone needs a Michael Carrington in their life, somebody who just gets it straight away.
Yeah, I think it's really easy to think, I did this in spite of everyone, but we've had so many heroes along our way that even from like Debbie Lee, who I mentioned before, and people who really champion your stuff and get the vision, I guess. And he was definitely one of those. He did so many special things to make Bluey and kids TV happen in Australia. I think it's only sort of coming out now how much, because he just moved there for the job, and almost within landing and his first day there, he called up and said, "I'd like to give you some development money for Bluey." And we later found out he did that for a bunch of other people as well that are now brilliant shows. So it really is those heroes who, I guess, not buck the system, but just will stuff into happening. Because it's not as easy as writing a letter, sending it in, and then getting approved. There's a, yeah.
What's his number? Could you just give me? I'll just punch it into my phone here. So.
Yeah, it's 000.
Yeah.
It did feel like that. He was like very much a bit of a guardian angel. Yeah, very much.
Wonderful.
Well, talking about, it's not a letter, but Bluey's been described as a love letter to Brisbane. I read that, which I found fascinating, because the backdrops look like you're capturing Bowen Hills or Back to the City, or you've got really iconic Queensland and Brisbane themes. You've stayed really true to Australian voices.
Yeah.
Had power over that, I'm not sure, Daley. Talk to me a little bit about how unabashedly, not just Australian, but Queensland it is.
Yeah, well, we've talked about this really early on. It was definitely a choice, but it's more the idea that, oh, that's a really brilliant right-handed painting. How did you do that? I was like, well, we're right-handed. Like there was a little bit of that to it in the idea of like at the time, a lot of Blue, like Joe had 2 kids, Charlie, his 2 kids were 4 and 6 at the same time. The artists were all mostly hadn't been out of Brisbane. The lead art designer on the first season, Katrina Drummond, she was just out of school and just brilliant. And it's that's where we all lived and where they lived, and it made sense that, you know, we live in Brisbane, Joe lives in Brisbane, Charlie lives in Brisbane, the healers live in Brisbane. And what will the trees be like? Well, they'll be jacarandas. And what will the birds? Well, they're going to be really annoying bats at 5 p.m. But beautiful, but screeching bats. So it very much started with Joe and the stories, but after that, it was very much it was a choice, but only, like I said, in as much of a choice as it just made complete sense. We've never name checked Brisbane, and a lot of the places are real locations, but a lot of them are sort of amalgamations of places. And I said there's a few places around Brisbane that says, we're the Bluey one. And it's not quite, it's like half and half of a few different places. And so it was very organic, but there definitely was a considered decision to follow that, to have Story Bridge, and not just that, not just landmarks and not just architecture, but the colours of Brisbane, which Katrina and Costa, who's now the lead art designer in season 2, it's just so impressive. They just have managed to capture the feel of Brisbane from the colours. It just feels like it feels like 4 p.m. or it feels like so 9:30 a.m. And it's just and that's them. Their eyes just see stuff that I personally don't see. I would say it's orange and yellow, and they'd be like, well, no, there's about 20 colors in there. It is unique to Brisbane, or at least maybe it's Australia, I think. Queensland definitely, Australia definitely, but it's really Queensland and Australia. It's just the colors, the palette of it, the house colors, the car colors. It's very strange how much adds up, that you're like, well, this looks like, and then how fresh it is. I haven't seen this before. And it's like, well, it seems to only exist here. And then in terms of the voices and things like that, we did talk about that there was a generation of Australian animation, which we loved, but I guess you'd call it like the Blinky Bill generation. That was a bit more in that, I guess, Paul Hogan-y area that came all that, wow, cracking, mister, that sort of stuff, which is great. But that's not our lives. Like, I don't talk like that. I love people who talk like that, but most of my friends don't talk like that. It seems to have not evolved, but just it's gotten a bit different. And then we really did talk about that with voices, and That's when we just loved Dave McCormack for Dad from Custard.
Dad, do you know everything?
Yep.
Prove it.
Okay. Bingo's about to run in and ask me where we're going.
Where are we going? Whoa.
People like Megan Washington.
Sister Rain has left and Father Son is home.
Melanie Zanetti. We did try to choose people with a bit of musicality to their voice, but also a bit of new Australian. I don't know if that makes sense.
Makes perfect sense. Yeah.
And none of them are putting on a voice either. There's no Homer Simpsons. There's no Blinky Bill. Like Dave is Dave.
Dad, I'm freezing. Dad, I'm hungry. Dad, I'm starving. Dad.
Okay. Can everyone stop saying Dad?
And Melanie is Mum, and Megan Washington is Calypso. Like, and they're just they don't do anything. They're what the amazing personalities they have live in their voices. So there was a conscious decision to try to, and I know definitely in Joe's head as well, to make a new kind of show. And then I think the Australian bit came second. I think to make a show that actually was like the lives we were living. And then it just was naturally Australia after that, and Queensland, because the lives we were living were that. And it's really incredible that people have picked up on it and like it as well. And we definitely still have, like, I know Joe really searches for those Charleville voices, those kids who sound like they're from the country. It's just that Australia does have this a really incredible array of just personalities and voices. So it wasn't that we were against the Blinky Bill thing. It was more that is one part of Australia now. And there's more stuff. There's more newer voices, I guess.
Sure.
I guess what you're talking about is sort of integrity and a theme that pops up in our podcasts already, and that's authenticity. So you build it and they will come. And if you all feel that strongly, and from what I can gather, Joe grew up in Winton as a kid.
And Rocky. And
it has that beautiful sort of link to the country somehow, obviously with the Blue Hero
very much
and stuff. There's something beautiful and enchanting about all of it.
What is that?
Car won't start.
Oh, goodness gravy!
There is everyone has bled or sweated a bit into it. There's a little chip of everyone in the show. You know, Bandit was Joe's family's dog, a blue heeler, different, like the stories of Bluey and Bingo and literally pulled from Joe's life, and Charlie's throwing his experiences with his kids that are a few episodes in there. And then the animators have done the same with the look of the show or a particular location, because that's where they go to a lot, or that's where they hang out, or we always go to that Chinese shop for dinner. Like, everyone really has chipped off a bit of themselves and put it in the show.
So your animators have urinated in the bushes outside that Chinese shop?
Yeah. Well, we have we do have to get a bit nervous sometimes because that technically ABC is not allowed to show brands, you know, or look like they're endorsing or not endorsing something. So you always dodge the idea that it's this, but it's not really this. And Bluey is so like for like that we have had to sort of be really conscious of that each episode. Like, can we actually have the actual big pineapple? Or does it need to be the big something else? And so it's really funny that does the weird things that come up every week are, well, that looks too much like a Lifeline bin. You know, it's just those sort of things it's really fascinating that you do have. And I understand why, but you do have to dodge and weave a bit.
So I'm interested now that you've got the tie-in with Disney and BBC that you talked about, and you talked about the concept of a Trojan horse, Daley, and when you introduced the terms bushwee, drop bears, there's all this sort of cultural interlacing there that, you know, do you guys kind of look over the fence now and say, are they going to get this, or how does that kind of go?
Yeah, we did. I think it's all happened quite quickly, so there wasn't much time to sort of rationalize stuff.
We're breaking down. I'll be right there, love. Boop. She'll be right here.
Oh, good.
Will they get it? It's so like, did Australia like it because it's so Australian? And, you know, and America already, you know, I even remember a quote from like, I think it was like the Beatles. I think it was like John or George said like, America has so much. What do they need us for? And it did feel like that. It's like they have so much stuff, and Disney, so much good stuff as well. And then the other thing was there's so much good stuff which you don't find till 6 years later, or never sometimes. And so add that to the idea that also this is a really uniquely idiosyncratic Australian show. The feedback we're feeling is that the things people are getting is the character. There's no difference in parenting or having a family, that everyone is going through the same stuff. And that was really great to read. It's almost like the more inside, the more personal you go, the more universal it becomes. That we thought these are really unique stories that no one will ever. This is really unique to Brisbane and us and Joe and Charlie. It's such personal stuff. And everyone was like, right, I know that. I do that. Oh, I did this. That's exactly what I experienced. And that's what we've been hearing a lot lately. And so it feels like nobody cares. People, like, they just want good stories and good characters. And even the accents, we haven't felt anything about that at all.
Okay, there we go. Lid off. Let's have a taste.
Like, we've just, and what's really heartening is we track social a lot, is that when people say, you've got to check out this new show, I was convinced they would say new Australian show or new something, but it was always just, you've got to check out this new Disney show. And it was like, well, that's cool. It's just like, we just sort of slotted in next to Star Wars and and Lion King. And it's felt really good. It felt really, and that's because the characters are strong, I think. And the stories are strong, and there's a lot of real stuff in there. And we've yet to hear about, it is going out in hopefully soon to China, and it's starting there, and that will be interesting. I guess coming out in the east part of the world, how it goes there.
The cultural times we're living in, even COVID-19 aside, with what's been happening in recent weeks in America and the polarization around the world.
Yeah,
Daley, I'm interested to know, like, now that you've got the cachet.
You want me to solve it? All right.
Yeah, can you do that right here, now?
I've got one big, no, I have no idea.
I wish.
Go on, I'm sorry.
We all wish. No, I wish you had the panacea for us all. But now that you've got your sort of foot in the door with these giants around the world, and Disney being the biggest one, of course, and you obviously are very passionate about the content you create and its authenticity and its integrity, and you like telling brave stories. Robbie Hood is just a wonderful story.
Oh, cool.
Do you feel like this sort of sense of crusade about what you're doing now, or is that overstating it?
Yeah, we're getting the shields made, and we're getting sort of these big. I think it came from that. I think it just came from what I was saying at the start, which was there was no, like, we loved America and we loved the movies they did and the stories they did, but there was no massive desire at the start to run to that. It was always really attracted to the making of it, and it might sound a bit wanky, but I'm sure if I had Freud or something, there'd be some background thing of you really want to be you really want to be famous or something, but it doesn't. There's no real feeling of that amongst anyone at the studio, to be honest. It is really all about the work.
How do you remove makeup?
I mean, it shows every week when we're having to sort of figure out how to get crazy jokes in, or toilet humor, or things that, you know, is tough, which understandably is tough with standards and practices, especially for Disney. And we are like, we want more of this toilet humor, for instance. We're like, what are we doing? Like, why are we like trying to like push something in that Disney's a bit like not, they know what they're doing, and we're going, well, we think we have a good idea as well, and it's just crazy. And I think that the irony is that people like what we're learning, and 2 seconds of experience is that people like the giants, I guess, like Disney. They want to work with people like that, not people who are disrespectful or screw you, I know how to do this, but people who are saying, no, this is what it is. This is my life. Like the kids do come in the toilet with me, or I do have to do bushwees, or you do, or Robbie Hood, Dylan River wrote and directed that, and it's about, it's sort of Stand By Me and Alice Springs, and the Indigenous kid Robbie, he steals stuff, he does bad stuff, but all with very happy, good reasons. Like it's not a villainous character, and I think, and that, and the timing, and you're talking about the culture at the moment, there very much was a feeling, even with Robbie Hood, of like, well, so we're going to make a show about an Indigenous kid who steals. It's like, that's it. Are you sure? And it's like, Dylan was like, yeah, because every kid does. Like, and especially like every kid does bad stuff. And in Alice, this is what my experience was. Like, I grew up, I didn't rob banks, but I wanted chips or something, or I took a chip from something. And I think the thing that seems to combat against censoring yourself, or against worrying what people think, or if people look at whatever you're making as, there's just a lot of, in a really good way, you do have to be conscious of much more conscious of the way the world is at the moment than when you're making, I don't know, Gone with the Wind, for instance. That's and the thing that we always lean on is that is Dylan's experience. Dylan River is a guy who grew up in Alice and had that experience, so it doesn't feel like we're betraying anything or making something up. Joe and Charlie have kids. They definitely experience this stuff, even if it seems like it might be a bit South Parky, or it might be a bit whatever it is, a bit dirty. That this is life. And that's a really nice thing to lean back on, as well as just our intentions are always good. Like we've never, we had a discussion earlier. We want to make stuff that makes people feel good. It doesn't mean we can't make sad stuff or stuff that is tough to watch. Like Robbie Hood certainly has tough moments. Like Robbie's dad's an alcoholic. Robbie's thrown into foster care in some episodes. But like Dylan and Tanith, who make that, there's just a lot of hope about it, which they have. And so as long as you hold on to that and you're not sort of kicking dirt in anyone's face, or there's not the intention behind everything you make is very, very positive. Yeah, I hope so. Yeah, I hope so.
It comes across that way, definitely.
Oh, that's good. And then the real shoe will drop in a few years.
Yeah,
finally make that film with my real views. Sorry, go on.
No, I'm interested, Daley, because we're living in times where the Chris Lilly stuff is being taken off stream, and to your point about Gone with the Wind, they're going to put the preamble or the warning on the front of that. I mean, how, I guess you've found your true north and you found your guiding principles. I guess all you can do as creatives and artistic types is to find your true north and make stuff that resonates to that.
You do have to think about that. And I think the other side of it, which seems like, again, not wanting to run away to LA or make the stuff that we love, but we've seen it, that we are really attracted to making that stuff we haven't seen, like Robbie Hood, like content, like a weird family, the Healers in Brisbane, that are dogs. Like it seems mainstream now or commercial, but they're all pretty weird shows. And it's because we're attracted to stuff we haven't seen.
It's interesting. We spoke to a wonderful Indigenous woman, Jonathan and I, the other day, Janelle Speed, who lives in the Northern Tablelands, lives and works down there. And she spoke about truth-telling. And that's kind of what we're talking about here, isn't it? I think it's a very powerful term.
It's hard to do. And you get really jealous when you see how natural it comes to people. Like the way that Dylan is able to just ride his life, or Joe is able to just ride, and Tanith, it's like, it's that weird thing of like finding your voice or whatever, and it's something that seems so obvious when you see people doing it. And yeah, not that, and I don't think not that there's not room for like Ninja Turtles, whatever. Not that there's not room for that. Like, I love those shows and Star Wars or whatever, but I think more and more the thing that I'm finding is that even those crazy big stuff, it has, like, I think George Lucas didn't have a great relationship with his dad, and it's not hard to see. Like, well, I'm going to make my dad the most evil person in the universe, and I'm gonna save him. Like, it's really weird how much, and maybe he didn't even realize it, but it's really funny how much. And I think there's definitely room for just fun comedy and fun stuff. But it seems like the more you chip away at yourself and put it in there, it just more hits people. And yeah, it's hard to do though. It seems like an easy thing, but it's actually it's a really hard thing to do. It's a skill. It's a real skill to figure out how to speak in your own voice, or whatever you want to say.
And growing up, did you have particular, talking comedy now, comedic influences? Yeah. Were they English, Australian, American, combination?
Yeah, I don't. It was. I was really lucky growing up. I've lived a really lucky life. Like, I've been very. I had lots of older brothers and sisters. My next oldest brother is, I think he's 10 or 15 years older than me. So I grew up with everything. So I grew up watching stuff that a kid likes, but then I'd also be exposed to 21 Jump Street, but then I'd also be exposed to Fawlty Towers. And then my dad would, play Ray Charles. It was like the most eclectic. I managed to steal or get exposed to stuff from so many generations, and just was like a magpie. I was just picking up the best parts of it, and I was so lucky to do that. But I think the thing that I found myself really attracted to, it always was comedy. I don't know what it was, and it was, I'm trying to think who it was. Like, it's funnily enough American comedy, as sort of, I guess, as maybe unpopular as that is to say. Like, I just really did find, the comedians who people aspired to a bit, that you found super cool, like Bill Murray and Eddie Murphy. Those comedians who I want to be like them. Yeah. Like, and then I then slowly discovered that it seemed much funnier when you were really uncool and funny, which was sort of Fawlty Towers and later The Office. And I think I find myself much more attracted to those characters, because Bill Murray was like, he wasn't so much he was the weird outsider. I'm like, no, you were. You're a super cool guy. And same with, but I do find myself attracted to the weird stuff, and I think that's just growing more and more. That I do feel like I'm quite far in the absurd comedy lately. And you need to pull yourself back to thinking of the audience, which happens a lot with Bluey, funnily enough. And a lot of the stories from Joe and Charlie, they come from stories about dad. Like, I experienced this as a dad, and then you need to pivot that to be, well, this is really Bluey and Bingo's story and is about them. So as long as you capture, as long as wherever it comes from, you can sort of make it a little bit more packageable for everybody. Yeah. So I guess it's so boring to say everything. What about you guys? What did you
look, when you said American comedians, I mean, my father, bless him, is still with us, but he loved Jonathan Winters and Don Rickles. And Don Rickles was like a slam comedian. Don Rickles' material would not be allowed.
No, it's the same. I know what you're saying. That big, broad stuff, like Jim Carrey stuff as well.
If you play Don Rickles to my kids or whatever, they're like, how on earth did anyone get away with saying this stuff? But he did it in such a way that he knew that they knew that you knew that everybody was in on the joke, And
that's really
really interesting because my kids love Steve Martin and Martin Short. A lot of their stuff is quite sophisticated as well. So it's very interesting in that household you spoke about with Ray Charles and all those eclectic interests of your older brothers and all the family, how you do grab bits from all that. David Frost I loved David Frost when I was a kid as well. So
I know exactly what you mean. It's like
stays with you.
And there's so much stuff, like the influences of, like, there's just so many great people to steal from. It feels like, and that's where it's sort of that feeling comes of like America's got everything. What does it need us? It's like that real feeling, especially if you're Australian, when you're not really meant to be you don't really have, it's not in you to be the gold medal winner. Who's
you're happy to come 8th or 9th, and
well, I don't know if it's that, but it's more like you don't want to be cheered before the race. You all want to be. You're definitely not going to win, and you're like, yeah, I'm going to win. You lose. You're like, yeah,
Stephen
but you want to be
Bradbury.
you want to be the underdog. Like, I'm much more comfortable being the person and I think that's where the evolution of people I loved came from. I'm much more comfortable being you're going to lose this race. I love that much more than anyone saying, I think you're going to do really well. Because I'm like, well, I'm definitely not now. And I think that happened with like the comedy and the people I like, that it starts off with these comedy heroes, these cool people. And then you find yourself much more attracted to the sort of losers in the corner who are quipping and pulling down
little asides,
the social construct, totally, who are sort of up against it, I guess. And I think that's it's and the other thing that's scary about comedy is I think it's the most, like, I can watch Rear Window, or I can watch 12 Angry Men, or like Out of Africa, I don't know what, but I can watch movies, dramas, stories from different generations, and they pretty much still have the same hit as then. But comedy is the most generational thing I can think of, and there's a real and I always grew up with that worry of, like, I really want to do comedy, but there's something about comedy which, like, it's just much easier to love The Godfather, and kids today at the right age probably love The Godfather, but then if you show them The Jerk, or I don't know, Dumb and Dumber, or these comedies that global people loved, they'll say this is not funny. And it's like, and it's really, I think about that a lot. It makes you want to run away from comedy and just do drama. But there's something I've never had the feeling.
You have to be brave to do comedy at any time. To walk out in front of an audience, or to write a script and go, are people going to laugh at that? You have to be so brave.
Yeah, you're right. And I do much prefer, I think the thing that gets me through is I much prefer the feeling of when something's just really funny than even the best sort of stories, or the best sort of, isn't it wonderful that this guy or girl, that character got through it in a drama. I just love that feeling of an idiot or a stupid joke. You lose everything. And it was, I remember one day at home, I think it was like South Park or something. It was the worst joke. It shouldn't have been funny. And there was my nieces, my nephews, my dad, my sisters, everyone was in hysterics. And there's just something so amazing about that feeling, which I don't think you can get with drama. You can really, it just gets you through like death, or it gets you through breakups, or it gets you through misery. Like with dramas or stories, you're like, oh, that person's like me. It felt very affirming to watch this drama about this person who lost their dad, or who had a divorce. But there's something about comedy which makes you think, who cares? This is fucking great. This is like, everything's against me. I've lost all my money. I've got 6 months to live, but this is funny. And it's really powerful when you get it right. And it's so nice to hear that some people are getting that from a few of our shows.
You took a comic turn as Daryl, the famous flatmate to Thor.
Oh yeah,
that was your.
That was real truth. That was real truth in that. That was me.
Was that the real Daley Pearson? I'm interested though. Your great mate Taika Waititi. is there a secret Stormtrooper appearance coming up for you now?
I wish there was. Nobody's filming anything. I wish there was. That was the biggest happy accident I've experienced.
Daryl here is helping me craft an electronic letter I'm writing to Captain America and Iron Man. There seems to be something very intense going on between them, and I want to offer my help, my services. Dear Tony Stark, how's it going?
It's like a friend of a friend knew Taika, and then it just happened. He was shooting on the Gold Coast, and I think I had a couple of lunches with him, and he is somebody you'd aspire to be like that. He's got his truth in there, and he's just got super funny stuff in there. And yeah, so I was a bit in awe of him. So much so, I think I didn't want to do it. I have a feeling I didn't respond to emails or calls because I was just really nervous to do it. And then, yeah, it was the most ridiculous thing. And well, yeah, and he's somebody who just, I think that comedy thing, that who cares if I fail, I'm going to give this a go. That was his reason behind doing that. Because I think there was a lot of online chatter about this guy from What We Do in the Shadows is doing a superhero film. No way that's possible. That's ridiculous. Like he's gonna ruin it. This is ridiculous. And then so the idea behind it was he made that as this is my Thor. So it was launched at Comic-Con as like, yeah, this is Thor. This is what I'm doing with it. And then I think they had a pause and then they played the proper trailer. So it was this big joke on everyone of like, this is what I'm doing with Thor. And it wasn't, I don't think there was meant to be many more, but apparently people liked it. So they're keeping it going.
I guess my last question then would be, what do you now say to those students that you were sort of 10, 15 odd years ago? What do you say to young people? Because what we have now are these platforms, the one that we're speaking on right now, and so many others where, like you say, your stuff might never get discovered and you could be, the next Spielberg or whatever. I mean, generally speaking, the system will find you, but it is amazing how many wonderful content creators, Daley, are out there right now of all ages. There's a young fellow in Kununurra who works for the ABC, Tom, who had a great show called The Kununurra Kid. With what you've learned with sitting down or Zoom talking to Mr. Disney,
yeah.
What do you say to them?
He's alive, by the way. He's alive.
He is alive.
He is.
Walt.
Yeah. Sorry, I think
Cryovac, he's back.
But yeah, it's exclusive to this podcast. It's all true.
Excellent.
It's such a hard question because it's like there is a feeling of all roads lead to Rome. That I would never be able to reverse engineer getting to whatever stage we're at. But the thing I think that we seem to have in common with other people who we look up to or who we aspire to is that they all seem to have leaned in on themselves. They weren't crazy joiners, if that makes sense. They really came up and worked with their friends and did it where they were with what they had. I think that's something that, like, I'm still working with my friends and the people who made shorts with and in film school, and I know Joe's the same, and that he's still working with his brother, and there was no feeling of I want to run out and get the best. I want to run out and get the best composer in the world. It was more like I want to work with my friend Joff because I think he's the best composer in the world, And I think that is something that seems to be in common with a lot of people, that coming up with that team around you and really looking out for them, and they look out for you, and almost ignoring everything. Like it's been 10 years of just not much that you do have to not. In a weird, it seems like there's a lot of irony in any sort of success, that the more you don't want it, that it seems to come, the more you just focus on the work, or just do what you do, or just focus on your story, or just focus on that joke that day, or that character, or what is the best voice for this Dalmatian character, or what is the best way rather than too much of I can go to LA and do this or try to work with Harrison Ford, whatever it is, just working. You know, who would be cool to work with? Dave McCormack from Carson, because he's just brilliant. The more that is in your head, I think it seems like that gives you a bit of a fighting chance, because you're not relying on anyone. And I think, and in terms of people who we love working with, it's again a sort of irony that you want to work with people who don't need you in a weird way, who you're like, I want to work with them. And that's what we felt about Dylan and Joe and Content. Anyone we sort of work with, I genuinely feel like I'm lucky to work with them, and they don't need us, but they do as well. And you need them, and they need stuff from you. But you want that feeling of, I guess it's not self-reliance. That's the wrong word. Just making it where you are. I think that seems to be the biggest thing. Take your steal from everybody and take your inspiration from everywhere, but do it with your best friend, or do it with the people in your street, or set your film at your home, or that seems to be the bit of thread that everyone I love to has in common, from John Hughes to the Beatles. They all seem so self-possessed, I guess. Like, I'm cool doing this where I want. No, this is how I want to do this. This is how I talk. No, this is how teenagers are. And that's really inspiring, I think, when you see it in other people.
Fantastic.
I'm cancelling my Anthony Robbins ticket and getting my Daley Pearson one right now.
Yeah, screw him. Guys, you got to do this. No, he's all right.
He's all right. He wears shoes. Daley doesn't have to wear shoes to be cool.
No way, man. No way. No way they're getting me in shoes again, man.
Stick it to the man, Daley.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me.
It's been an absolute delight. We will wrap up on that. But Simon, wow, this has been an absolute
That is one fertile mind that Daley has, and we've loved running around in it today. It's been fantastic.
Fantastic indeed. All right. Well, thank you, Daley Pearson. Until we meet again, Simon. Thank you. This has been
anytime. It's been a real pleasure. Thank you very much.
MADMEN podcast. Until we meet again, I'm Jonathan Fogarty on behalf of Simon Reeve. It's been a privilege, and we hope to hear from Daley again. But for now, goodbye.
Thanks, Daley.
Oh, thank you so much, guys. I've got 1% battery. How lucky. I'm going to take a screen grab of this to prove it.